Hello IS304. This video is meant to be a follow-up on the first lesson we had, and I'm going to do a quick tutorial on doing basic configurations for a switch. Now the configurations are going to be the same for a router. Okay, so we begin by opening a packet tracer. So you have packet tracer open. Remember that the first lesson we covered was basic configuration commands. So I'll add in a switch. I'll add a 2960 switch on one end and a 2950 switch on the other end, and I'll probably put one PC here and one here, and then we'll just make sure that there is also a router. So I'll add a 2911 router here, and I'll connect both switches using port 1. Again, remember the concept of the auto MDICs, because it's 2960, 2950. We can just use a straight through copper cable and it will still be able to work. If you're using 2950, 2950, you will have to use a crossover cable. Okay, so I have both switches connected. I'm going to add another connection from this switch down to the PC here, from this switch to PC here, and one across to the router. Okay, so remember that in every basic configurations, one of the first things we need to know is the different prompts that we are working with. Okay, so as soon as you log into a console interface of or the terminal interface of the switch, the first prompt you should see is the user exec mode. Okay, so it shows with the greater than symbol switch, the default name. Okay, so enable or en should take you into the privileged exec mode, and I would like to do some configs here. So I type config t, configure terminal, or conf t, takes me into the next mode, which is the global config mode. And here I would like to, one of the first things I would like to do is change the name of the switch to SW1, so host name SW1. So that's one of the first things you would like to do when you're doing basic config. Another thing is we'd like to enable secret Cisco, set a password. Okay, privilege exec mode password, enable secret Cisco. Okay, we go service password encryption. So we ensure that all plain text are all encrypted. Service password encryption, enable secret Cisco. We go set a password for the LAN console 0, LAN con 0 password, say class. We enable with the use of the login keyword. We go exit LAN VTY 0 to open 4. Okay. And password is the same password class. Enable it login. Okay, exit. I want to do a show IP int brief. Okay, so you can see that there are at least 24 interfaces plus fast Ethernet interfaces plus 2 gigabit Ethernet interfaces. So this is on the 2960 switch. Okay, so the next thing, well, I've done the host name. I've set the password for the privileged exec mode, enabled secret Cisco, encrypted all the plain text with the service password encryption, set password class for the console interface, password class for the VTY terminal interfaces. There's 5 of them. I'll do a no, okay, hold on, conf t, no IP domain, lookup. There's another command I'd like to enter, so anytime I make a mistake, it does not have to be looking up for the command. Okay, so later you'll enable that when you are setting up SSH. Okay, so no IP domain lookup, and that's about it. We need to do a show, okay, I'll bypass, so do a do show VLAN and brief. Okay, so it shows me that these are all the default VLANs. By default, all the interfaces are all part of VLAN 1. Okay, so I want to create, remember part of lesson 1 is to be able to create a management VLAN. Okay, so I need to create a management VLAN, so I'll type int VLAN1 IP address, and I'll give 192.168.10. Let's say 10. 255.255.255.0. No shut. Okay, and VLAN1 is up. That's the default VLAN. Okay, I'll end that. Do a write or copy run start if you want to save. Okay, that's the same as doing WR. Okay, write into NVRAM. Exit. You see exit, and when I hit enter, it's asking me for a password. Okay. Oh, console. Class. Enter. It will ask me for a password. Cisco. Okay. So I'm done with this. I'll leave that as it is. So that's SW1. Let's go into SW2. We'll call this SW2. CLI. Enable. Okay. Conf T. Hostname SW2. Enable secret Cisco. LAN con 0. Password. Let's use the same password class. Enable that. Login. LAN VTY 0 to 4. Password class. Login. No IP domain. Lookup. Service password encryption. And we end all of that with WR. Okay, again, same thing when you do a show IP, show VLAN brief. You should see that all the interfaces are all part of the default VLAN1. So I will do a conf T again from here, int VLAN1. I also want to manage this switch remotely. Okay, so int VLAN1 IP add 192.168. I'm assuming that they are on the, well, because they are connected to each other, they will be on the same network. Okay, so they will still be in the 192.168.10, but I'm going to give this one 20. Okay, 255.255.0, no shut. Okay, and that's it, right? Okay, so let's try something here. Usually, if you wanted to configure switch, because it's a switch 1 here, you will notice that in packet tracer, I just went straight to the switch, clicked on it, went and clicked on the CLI tab. Well, in reality, that's necessarily not how it works. You'll have to use a console cable, plug it into the RS-23 port or USB port, and then to the console end on the switch. And then you'll have to go to the PC, desktop, terminal, accept all the defaults, OK, and that should take you straight into the terminal interface. Okay, so that's usually how you would configure a switch, and this is known as in-band management. Okay, so that's straight out of the box. The switch comes, no configs on it. You will have to connect a console cable to configure that. Now, what if the switch is already configured? Okay, switch is already configured. It's connected to the network and it's in operation. Let's say I want to configure the switch or make some changes to the switch name, host name, and I don't want to go to the room where the switch is. I can connect from anywhere as long as I'm also connected to the network. So let's try PC1. We go to PC1, we go desktop, command prompt. Let's just do a ping to 192.168.10.10. Okay, so it looks like it won't respond because I need to assign IP address here first. 192.168, and I'll use 10. Let's say 21. And leave that as it is. Go back to the command prompt. Okay, and I'll repeat that. Okay, so it's going to be able to reach the SVI, the switch virtual interface on this switch. Okay, so that should indicate to me that the telnet should work. 10.10, and yes, it's working. It's asking me for a password. Just type Cisco or class and got Cisco. Remember, class was also the terminal password. So notice I'm now able to log into the switch. okay, from a remote part of the network. Now do notice that this is all in the same network. What if we took this network out and we plugged it into this part of the router? So let's say that these are two different networks now. You have the 192.168.10.0 network /24, and on this side we have 192.168.20.0/24 network. Okay, so we need to change the address here. Okay, so simply if you wanted to change the IP address of VLAN 1, go into VLAN 1, no IP add 192.168.10.20. 255.255.255.0. So that removes the IP address. I'm going to add a new IP address, 192 IP add 192.168.20. Let's say 5.5.5.0. And no shot. So no shot. And okay, let me do a show IP int brief. And we should verify that the IP address for VLAN 1 has now changed to 20.5. Okay, so I check this. It should be 20 also. This is in a different network. And it's done. Now this time, if I wanted to configure or be able to remotely manage the switch from this part of the network, I will need to do an additional config now to the switch. Did you notice that earlier on when these two switches were connected, all we had to do was just ensure that they had passwords configured for the console, passwords configured for the privileged exec mode, and so on. All that was configured, so it just allowed us to be able to manage the switch. Now we're in a remote network. Okay, I say a remote network because every interface that connects to a router is a separate segment or separate LAN, which means that these interfaces have to be configured as the default interfaces for each of these networks. This is a network, this is another network. Okay, so I need to configure G00 CLI conf t. I need to go int G00 IP address 192.168.10.1. I'll use the first address and no shut, and you can see that the link goes up. So I'll end that, do a WR to save. Oh, hold on, I forgot one more. I need to also configure this interface. Okay, so conf t, and then I'll do int G01 IP add 192.168.20.1 55.255.0, no shut, and the interface goes on also. WR on this. By the way, we're in the router. Since we're in the router, it's also good that I do basic config here also. So I'll do conf t host name R1, no IP domain lookup. I need to do a enable secret Cisco service password encryption. You see, you can apply almost all the same configs you apply to the switch, but not all the commands can work. Okay, some commands are only for layer 3, others will only work for layer 2. So service password encryption, but otherwise basic configs are all very much the same. Service password encryption done, and WR to write or copy run start. Okay, so now let me try and do a ping. Let me do a ping to remember that this is the gateway. Okay, so before we do that, let's go to ipconfig and make sure we enter that information also. So this is supposed to be 20.1. Okay, and let's do a ping. Let me exit first from here. Hold on. Okay, do a ping 192.168.20.1 and reply is successful. Okay, so let me try do a ping to 10.1, which is on the other side. That's this interface. Okay, so it can reach 10.1, no problem. Let me try 10. What was this address again? Oh, we didn't assign an address. 192.168.10. Let's say this is 10.10. Let's say 10.15. And it also has 192.168.10.1. So remember, those details need to be entered unless your ping responses will fail. Okay, so 10.15. Okay, so let's see if this is going to pick up. Yes, reply is successful. Okay, so let me try telnet. I'm just trying to log into this switch from this PC here. Let me try telnet 192.168.10.10. Okay, so 10.10, remember, is the VLAN, the SVI, sorry, show IP read. See, that's the SVI address, which happens to be VLAN 1. So I'm trying to remotely connect and it's not allowing me to do that. Okay, so one reason why that is not happening is I need to tell this switch who is the default gateway. I also need to tell this switch who is the default gateway. Okay, so we go to switch 2 IP default gateway 192.168.10.1 and right, we go to this switch conf t IP default gateway 192.168.20.1. Done, right, done. Okay, so let me try this again. Command prompt. Let's see, repeat that, then that's it. Okay, so you can see that it's able to connect. I'll go class, and there you are. Let's go. It should take me into that. So I can now change the password. Let's say conf post, not the password, sorry, the hostname, SW1, and there you go. Okay. Yep. So. Okay, so that's basically what I wanted to show you. Basic configurations that you need to apply to a switch or even a router: the host name, no IP domain lookup, LAN console passwords, VTY passwords, privilege exec mode passwords, and if you're going to manage the switch, make sure you give an IP address to the SVI. Now later we will learn that best practice is never to use the default VLAN, but for now we use the default VLAN just to demonstrate how this works. And if the switches are directly connected to each other, you don't really need to configure the default information, and you can be able to remotely manage the switch as long as you know the IP address of the SVI. Another thing is console passwords have to be configured, VTY passwords have to be configured, and also privilege exec mode passwords have to be configured. If you're going to remotely manage the switch from a different network, then that's when you need to have default gateway information configured on the switch, which was the last thing we did, and we verified that PC1 was able to log into the terminal for switch 1. Okay, so I hope that short tutorial, it wasn't rather short, but I hope that was helpful for you to try and work on this on your own. Pause the video, start a packet tracer file, and then slowly go through to help you gain a better understanding of what was covered in lesson 1. Thank you.